The latest round of Israeli airstrikes on two of the biggest hospitals in Gaza have killed dozens of people, including children. The attack has wrought further devastation to the Strip and critically needed healthcare. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the strikes were targeting Hamas leader Mohammed Sinwar. He's facing growing calls to end Israel's now months-long blockade of aid into the territory, which the UN says is putting the population at critical risk of famine. I'm joined by Clemence Laguarda, Oxfam's humanitarian response manager in Gaza. Clemence, thank you very much for coming in. You've recently returned from Gaza. Tell me, what did you see of the situation there?
The situation is getting worse by the day. We've been now more than 70 days without anything entering the Gaza Strip. No food, no fuel, no medicine. We are seeing devastating bombing across the Strip. We, as humanitarian workers, have only access to 30% of the territory. People are being forcibly displaced. Once again, we have almost 500,000 people that had to move since the 18th of March. And right now, our stocks are just empty, and we are not able to provide the needed assistance anymore.
And as we are seeing today, hospitals too are being targeted. What is the impact of that?
It's sadly a trend since the beginning of the war. Like, most of the hospitals have been hit in the past month, in the past year, which is basically weakening already very, very damaged healthcare system. Ambulance are running out of fuel. People cannot be picked up anymore. Medicine is running low, and doctors don't have the capacity or the necessary items to be able to treat patients, while we are seeing an increase in terms of the mass casualty incidents.
President Macron has called the blockade of aid shameful. The Prime Minister here, Keir Starmer, has said that the UK is working 24/7 to get the flow of aid restored. What are you seeing is happening to the aid? The Israeli government says that some of it is being stolen. What are you seeing is happening?
We haven't witnessed that. We haven't seen any proof of that. Right now, what we're seeing is that it is extremely constrained. For example, as Oxfam, we are continuing trying to provide services, but that are, for example, very, very dependent on fuel. Fuel is running low or is not accessible. So we are at high risk of having, for example, the entire water production of the Strip just stopping because of lack of fuel. So we had a working system, and if we are unable to do our work, if aid is entering, we will be able to alleviate the suffering of the Gaza population. But right now, we are not able to do that. Our humanitarian workers, our team, are under attack, and it's extremely difficult to be able to do our work.
The UN is now warning of a critical risk of famine. How close do you think we are to that point?
I think we are extremely close. We are already seeing people starving and people dying because of lack of adequate food. And right now, the most and the main victims are children, extremely young children, people that have vulnerabilities or chronic diseases, but soon it will be the entire population of the Strip.
And you've said that any international humanitarian response of the scale required now is impossible. What do you mean by that?
We don't have the means to be able to work. Like, as I mentioned, our warehouses are empty. People had to flee once again. They haven't been able to bring anything. We are not even able to bring like a tent or a proper place for people to get settled. Being able to provide the minimum things that they need to survive is extremely, extremely difficult. Food is not present. Water is running low. We are at high risk of having a public health crisis because we have sewage overspill. We have accumulation of waste. Like, everything is basically in the red, and we are at the brink of a catastrophe.
Clearly, aid needs to start flowing again. What overall are you calling for to happen now?
So right now we are calling for several things. We are calling for a permanent ceasefire. We need to be safe. People in Gaza need to be safe to be able to provide aid. We need aid to enter freely and at scale. We should not be counting trucks anymore or boxes, but we need basic items, but we also need technical items to come in. For example, as Oxfam, we have pipes waiting in Jordan to do critical repair to the water infrastructure. And we are waiting and asking for accountability accountability. What the population in Gaza has suffered since the beginning of the war is unimaginable, people need to be held accountable for that.
And the international community seems to have been finding it very difficult to act in a coordinated manner on this. How optimistic do you feel that anything will change?
I mean, it seems that there is a momentum right now. It's a shame that we had to wait to be on the brink of starvation of an entire population, of having children dying because of lack of food. But yeah, I think I'm calling for all the leaders to come together and then to put pressure so that the situation can be solved or at least alleviated. So again, asking for the border to open and asking for a permanent ceasefire.
Mm-hmm. And finally, the High Court is hearing a case this week against the UK government on arms sales to Israel, and Oxfam is giving evidence in that court case. What will Oxfam be arguing?
So what we are providing to the court are evidence on the humanitarian impact of what Israel is doing right now in the Gaza Strip. So is repeated attack on water infrastructure, is use of food and weaponizing food, but also the attacks on humanitarian workers. So we have been providing evidence on this systematic destruction, for example, of water infrastructure.
And Clémence, actually, one last thing I wanted to ask you. Having seen what you've seen, what would you urge world leaders to realize and to take into account when they are working out what to do next?
I think there is a sense of urgency that needs to be there. Malnutrition is very slow onset, but when it's there, when they are warning about a famine, a man-made famine, it's going to go extremely fast. We are already seeing people dying, and it's going to become worse and worse. So we need to act, and we need to act now, and the politician leaders need to act now. I think it's been more than 18 months now, enough with the talks and a bit more action.
Thank you very much for coming in and talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.